Hello there, Commonwealth from here. And is Monolith Soft developing the Ocarina of Time remake? The reason to ask this is that Zelda's 40th anniversary hasn't really brought much in terms of news. Yes, we did have Dark Horse Comics coming out with Secrets of the Zonai, or the English equivalent of Masterworks' Tears of the Kingdom, but that was books. That wasn't any game-related news. But then Monolith Soft, in the middle of the Easter break, or at the very end of the Cherry Blossom season if you want, updates their credits list when it comes to the games that they're worked off in the Legend of Zelda franchise. And this includes the 4 games, Skyward Sword on the Wii, The Legend of Zelda, A Link Between Worlds, in Japan Triforce of the Gods 2 for the Nintendo 3DS, Breath of the Wild for the Nintendo Switch, and Tears of the Kingdom for the Nintendo Switch. It seems like a strange thing that this update is coming here and now, because we know that all of these games have been mostly done by the smaller Kyoto team, the one that was reported in 2022 to only consist of 30 employees. And one of the big rumors when it comes to the Ocarina of Time remake is that Monolith Soft is involved and that this is their first true independent Zelda project, because up to this point with these 4 games they have been the supporting partner. They have been giving their open world expertise based on Xenoblade Chronicles, the original one on the Wii, and gradually with their added experience help the Zelda team also realize their open world dream, or open air dream, with Breath of the Wild and then Tears of the Kingdom. We have been talking about Monolith Soft potentially being the developer of Ocarina of Time Remake, the one that is becoming more and more real after Nate the Hate came out and said straight out, this is happening, and it is coming out in 2026, so by the end of this calendar year, not the fiscal year that we just entered. And speaking of the fiscal year, one of the reasons why we could see this update on the website of Monolith Soft might be exactly that. We have entered a new fiscal year, one that in many ways will contain the real celebration, or the gaming part of the Zelda 40th anniversary celebration. Looks like it could be June. But what is interesting, Monolith Soft has not revealed anything for the Nintendo Switch 2 yet. Which is a bit strange, seeing that with the Nintendo Switch, they were right there during the Nintendo Switch presentation, but so far with the 2 big directs that we've had, so the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct and then the September Direct, no sign of Monolith Soft. And that is why many are now pointing to that maybe they are being prepared to becoming the second 3D Zelda team. Well, part of Monolith Soft, of course. The thing is, Monolith Soft projects, they don't get announced at the same time. If this is the first Monolith Soft developed Zelda game, just like we saw with Grezzo in 2011, when it came to Ocarina of Time 3D on the 3DS, then again, Monolith Soft, they are masters at delivering in short notice. We saw that with Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and I feel like it's gonna be the same thing if they are developing Ocarina of Time Remake. Because this is a team that doesn't really delay their games. They deliver on time, and we've seen this also in the history of both Zelda remakes, remasters, is that they never get delayed like we've seen with the open air games. We could be very confident in this situation that Ocarina of Time Remake will be revealed in the next general Nintendo Direct, as all big Zelda projects do, when it comes to games at least, and will be released in the time for the holiday season. So what can really Monolith Soft then provide? Well, they are open world experts. We all know that, and they have been that even before Nintendo acquired them or bought them up fully from Namco in 2007. And since then, Monolith Soft has just been delivering a bigger world after another. And this is the thing, when Monolith Soft will return for the Nintendo Switch 2, they will definitely leave their mark. And I don't see them not expanding at least a little bit the world of Ocarina of Time. At least giving it that whole modern touch, in the sense of course, dual analog camera controls, as we have seen with all Monolith Soft games, pretty much, on Nintendo systems. When it comes to removing loading screens, which technically hasn't really been happening all that much in Xenoblade games, but it's been happening with the recent The Legend of Zelda games, as we have seen in both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. And these 2 things alone are already big leaps in modernizing Ocarina of Time, since it hasn't had this in any version yet, not even on the 3DS. I'm sitting with a feeling that if Monolith Soft is in this, and we know that they've been doing a hiring spree over the last year or so, I wouldn't be surprised if the Kyoto team is finally being given responsibilities beyond just supporting Nintendo with their open world projects, whether that was Mario Kart World, Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, Animal Crossing, and so on. Because let's be honest, this team deserves to have their own projects. They deserve to be on the level of Zreo eventually, developing their own The Legend of Zelda game after doing first 1 or 2 remakes. If they're starting with Ocarina of Time, that would make total sense, because immediately after that you have another Hero of Time game, Majora's Mask. They will be ready to make their own game as a big part of the Zelda 50th anniversary celebrations in the second half of the 2030s. Like, it wouldn't surprise me, because in general we get 2 remakes at most on each Nintendo system. We saw this on the 3DS, we saw this on Nintendo Switch, and we're likely to see it also on the Nintendo Switch too. So if Ocarina of Time Remake is the first one of these, then it wouldn't surprise me that Majora's Mask is the second one, and then go on with their own projects. Maybe that missing Hero of Time game that we all hope and want after these 2 games have been brought up to the modern standard. Does this mean that they will Breath of the Wild them? Technically, I don't think so. I feel like Nintendo in general are very careful when it comes to their biggest IPs, and when they are remastering or remaking them. Yeah, some will just say, well, that's exactly what Ocarina of Time 3D did. And yeah, that's why it was a massive success as well. You added Master Mode or Master Quest, a proper boss rush mode, plus some other quality of life improvements. And because of that, it was celebrated. And I have a feeling that it's going to be the same situation with Monolith Soft developed Ocarina of Time Remake, where they will add their quality and just expand on the stuff that is side content. It's not going to change the main content, and that is something we also have seen with the remasters. They have added epilogues to their games, and then is the question, could we see an epilogue to Ocarina of Time Remake as a result? Since this is, after all, Monolith Soft's speciality. We've seen it in Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and in Xenoblade Chronicles X's Switch remasters. Or they could just go that route of adding, side content, adding more life to, say, Hyrule Field, adding more life to, or expanding the size of certain areas of Ocarina of Time's Hyrule. Because we can't forget that they do have experience with town-like settings as well. I do wholeheartedly believe that if Monolith Soft is responsible for Ocarina of Time Remake, it seems like they're hinting more and more towards. This whole update just comes out of the blue, in the middle of this whole Nate the Hate situation, and the fact that we are in the Zelda 40th anniversary, and Monolith Soft hasn't really done anything like this. When we saw Tears of the Kingdom coming out, they didn't add all the games they've been working on, so the 4 of them, fittingly for the 40th anniversary as well. I have a feeling that we are in for a massive surprise from this studio, and them becoming even greater Nintendo stars by finally handling a Nintendo IP, one that they didn't create themselves from start to finish, and instead of having a supporting role, this time Nintendo's Zelda team headed by Eiji Aonuma and Hidemaru Fujibayashi will only have an advisory role when it comes to Ocarina of Time Remake, because Monolith Soft is probably the studio we can trust the most, alongside with Zreo. But in the case of Monolith, they do have that Kyoto team that I think is very hungry to prove themselves with more than just supporting and making Nintendo's open air and open world games shine. And in truth, that is all that there is to say about this. I really hope that Monolith Soft is developing the Ocarina of Time Remake. I hope this is a hint towards that development, because if you're trusted with your characters in Super Smash Bros. And all the collabs, something we have seen with the Rex costume also as the DLC for Breath of the Wild with the launch of Xenoblade Chronicles 2, I really trust Monolith Soft with the future of The Legend of Zelda, but more so the future of the Hero of Time. A fellow who has not seen any big releases outside of Lego form in over 10 years with Majora's Mask 3D in 2015, and we haven't seen anything with the biggest game, Ocarina of Time Remake, in 15 years. So I think it's time to let a new team build their confidence, really, with the Hero of Time in Ocarina of Time. In Monolith Soft, we trust. But what do you think about Monolith Soft potentially, or more and more hinting towards, being the possible developer of Ocarina of Time Remake? Sound off in the comment section down below. If you haven't already, then be sure to leave a like, subscribe and press the notification bell to not miss any upcoming Nintendo Switch 2 and Zelda videos. Last but not least, a big thanks to you for watching and to all our patreon.com/commonrealm patrons. Special shoutouts go to our heroes, Cheryl, Garrett Hoy, Holly Wolf and Kintaro. You rock, and please enjoy these awesome videos.